Okay, thank you. Residents, welcome to the April 25th Board of Selectmen meeting. My name is Ron Cohane. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen. The following meeting is being recorded and broadcast by Tyngsborough TV. The meeting is available through our local access channels on Comcast and Verizon Fios and as a live stream on our website at www.tyngsboroughma.gov. A recording of this meeting will be available through the video on demand portion of our website. Open meeting laws require that any member of the audience who intends on recording either video or audio so declare that now. Seeing none. After instruction from the State Fire Marshal and the Tyngsborough Fire Chief, in the event of an emergency, there is an exit directly across from me at the rear of the room and one to my left. Can I please ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
I'll ask for board introductions. I'll start from my far left. You get to go first.
Shannon McAndrew, Executive Assistant.
Good evening, Rick Rowe.
Hillary Wennerstrom.
Good evening, Eric Eldridge.
Good evening, Katerina Kalabokis.
Good evening, Matt Hanson, Town Administrator.
Good evening, Colin Loisel, Assistant Town Administrator.
Thank you. First on the agenda is meeting minutes. Could I have a motion for the executive session meeting minutes, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and release the executive session meeting minutes for April 11th, 2022. To review, approve, and not release the executive session meeting minutes for April 11th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain or opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. 401. Citizens of business time. Would anybody like to address the board at this time? Seeing none, kind of have a little bit of a special announcement tonight. About a month ago, I asked our town administrator to make sure that he had a gift for our retiring selectmen. And Hillary Wennerstrom has asked that she present this to Rick, and it's all yours, Hillary.
Thank you. So it's a little hard, Rick, to sit next to you for the final time, but I prepared a few words because you deserve much more than a few words, but we'll go with it. So Rick, for 15 years of public service to the town of Tyngsborough, I think most of us are pretty speechless at the thought of that. And certainly it should be more than acknowledging you with just a plaque, but knowing you like I do, and as some of your friends are here gathered tonight, you would attest, you never did this for any of the accolades. So even saying a few things about you and showing this type of appreciation is more than you would have ever expected in return for 15 long years. We're going to say that a lot tonight. And to say that you have a passion for the town of Tyngsborough is really an understatement. And so let me just read to you what I asked the town clerk to give me as your years of service, which, if you quite do the math, it doesn't add up, but somehow I think it just shows your commitment to the town of Tyngsborough. For 4 years, you served as a sewer commissioner. For 12 years, you sat in this seat as a Board of Selectmen, while also serving 11 of those years as our NEMGOG representative. For 4 years, you sat on the Capital Asset Committee, 5 years as a member of the Agricultural Committee, and I believe if the record stands correct, you still have another year of service on that, so we'll keep you busy. You've been on numerous subcommittees, negotiations, and attended absolutely every meeting you possibly could. I have to say I'm a little envious of the free time you're about to have on your hands, and I'm sure your wife Sue has plans to fill some of them with overdue projects as well as some well-deserved nights out of town. But all joking aside, Rick, thank you for your leadership and most importantly, your friendship. We've worked together for much of those 15 years as I served side by side on you in the school committee for 9 years and now 5 years as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I've learned so much from you and truly value the friendship that you've invested as a result of our time serving together. You're a man of integrity and honor, and the town of Tyngsborough is better for your leadership. I will miss your wisdom and your humor on Monday nights, but know that we've gained a new viewer on Tyngsborough TV and that you won't be a stranger, because when you have an opinion about how things are going, I know you will find your way to Town Hall to let us know. So, my friend, be well and enjoy your well-deserved nights off. And the folks that are here are lifelong friends and lifelong residents. And I think that just truly, again, speaks to the character of you as a person. And I'm honored.
Thank you.
I'll open up the board. Would anybody like to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the key thing there, passion and commitment for the town of Tyngsborough for such a long time. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. And you'll be sorely missed.
Well, thank you, Rick. And Hillary, I think that was a very beautiful, well thought out speech, which I think was very well rounded and really showcased everything that Rick has brought to the town. So thank you, Rick. I know I've only been here for a short time in comparison to your very long legacy there, but it has definitely been engaging and something that I absolutely appreciate serving alongside you. So thank you very much.
Rick, 12 years.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
It's a, I'll just say a couple things.
Yeah,
there.
okay, I'm sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
That's okay. I know you're getting anxious now. Huh?
Thank you.
You know, Rick, we didn't agree all the time, but we did agree on 90+% of the time, the vast majority of time. I know you worked hard. Hillary had mentioned NIMCOG. We worked together at NIMCOG. And what Justin always told me at NIMCOG is that, if it wasn't for Rick Rowe, the affordable housing plan never would have been written, because he said, you really wrote the whole thing. That was really before we had a planner. It just shows, the hard work that you put into it. I just want to say thank you for your service, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Ron. First and foremost, I want to thank my wife, Sue. Serving all these years, it certainly took its toll, being home alone and having me at so many meetings, and I want to thank her for allowing me to do that. My children, when I first started, were in high school. They're grown now, have their own careers, but they put a lot of sacrifice in. It was almost 50 years ago, it'll be 50 years, I think, next year, that I moved into the town of Tyngsborough. So I thought I would give a recount of all those 50 years, one by one. The first thing I did was, my parents did, was move right next to my lifelong friends, Ronnie Legassi and Gary Browning. We became friends right away, and then Debbie was going out with Ron in high school, and we were lifelong friends, and Michelle married Gary, and how many years ago, and we've been a large part, my wife and Sue and Gary, Michelle, Ronnie, Debbie, we're like family, and it's very nice to thank you for being here this evening. It's when you started years of service, I remember even as a high school kid that we had to coach the younger kids, and the coaches made sure that the high school kids got involved in coaching the younger kids, and that started my service. And then, after my years and years of coaching, to walk into Town Hall and my first experience with Jerry Foley and Jeff Hannaford and Kerry Coburn-Dion and Alan Kersaden and Paul Preventure working in the sewer department, and then moving on to the Board of Selectmen. It's really something that I do have a passion for. I served with 14 different selectmen, and I kind of took a glance at the board this morning, and Bob Wallace served for 12 years. Bob Wallace was a friend, and I worked, to help him get elected when he first ran. But in the past 100 years, there's only Bob and myself that have served 12 years on the board. So that's a really sense of accomplishment. But during those years, we just really got a lot done. And I feel like that, I held my bargain on my oath to the town of Tyngsborough, and was very passionate. I got to work with some really, really good people to elected office, and of course all the people that work, for the town. That we have a really nice place that we live in, and Hillary, I won't forget that my first it was my second year of the Board of Selectmen, and I was chairman of the board, and the school committee and the Board of Selectmen didn't have the best of relationships at the time, and you were chair of the school committee and I was chair of the Board of Selectmen, and we sat down with our town administrator and the school superintendent, and I think we brought something together that continues to this day, and I'm very, very proud to have served with you and accomplished that one thing, and many, many others. I do want to encourage people, especially younger people. We've served with some young people. I'm going to consider you a younger person, but it's nice to see younger people involved. Ashley O'Neill was on the board as a young board member when I first started, and David Robson came on, and all have done a tremendous job, and I encourage more people to step forward in doing that. It's a good feeling when you get things accomplished for your town, and you leave it in a better place when you first came on. But thank you all very much. It's humbling. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, I guess we'll get to the public hearing now. I have a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that the Board of Selectmen open the public hearing and waive the reading of the hearing notice and the legal ad.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Can I ask the applicant to come up here? Okay, who would like to kick this off?
Shannon, would you like to give an introduction?
Shannon.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Okay, so Brian Wickens is requesting a common victular license for Tyngsborough Sports Concessions, DBA Potash Hill Bar and Grill at 500 Potash Hill Road. As the local licensing authority, Mr. Wickens has requested this public hearing before you to approve the request for the common victular license, which would accompany a seasonal on-premise liquor license, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen on February 28th. We asked all other relevant departments for comments, and there were no adverse comments. This hearing was advertised in the Lowell Sun on April 11th and 18th, and notices were sent to abutters by mail certificate in advance of this meeting, and the full application is included in your packet.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add? No, I covered it. Okay. Any questions from the board? Selectman Rowe.
I have no questions.
Selectman Winstrom.
So this is basically the hearing we've already had, but there was some issues that circled the license back to us. Nothing has changed since then.
They wanted a common victular license separately for the food truck, so that's all this is.
Okay. I have no questions, thank you.
Selectman Eldridge.
We have available licenses.
Yeah, for common
Oh,
vics.
yeah, there's unlimited of.
I just want to make sure. No other questions?
Selectwoman Kellabokas.
I think you've been here enough. No other questions.
I see nobody in the audience, so I don't have to open this up. Any last words you'd like to add? You don't want to come back and see us again real soon? I don't blame you. Understood. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move that the Board of Selectmen close the public hearing.
Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Any other comments from the board? Can I have a motion then?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the common Schiller license for Tyngsborough Sports Concessions, DBA Potash Hill Bar and Grill at 500 Potash Hill Road.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that passes 500. Thank you very much. Enjoy your summer. Next on the agenda is the budget and the town meeting warrant. Mr. Town Administrator, I'll let you kick this off.
And I'll try and be brief because I know we have to get through the whole thing this evening. The articles under the special town meeting were already approved and posted by the board, so at this point, we would just be requesting that you vote your recommendations to town meeting on the special town meeting warrant articles, so we can include those in the FinCom guidebook. So Article 1 is the transfer of accrued interest to the sewer department. This has to do with the 50 Westford Road and 0 Middlesex Road betterment payments. Is about $159,116 in accrued interest for non-payment. That ultimately did come back to the town, but requires town meeting vote to transfer it back into the enterprise.
Okay, so we've placed this, but we haven't voted on it.
Correct. It's been placed and posted. It just has not been voted on a recommendation.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Can I have a motion to recommend Article 1?
I move to recommend Article 1.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any last minute discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500.
Article 2 is another transfer back to the sewer department. This is for $12,360, the proceeds of a sewer department vehicle that was paid for out of the sewer enterprise, so the surplus funds they would like transferred back into the enterprise.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to recommend Article 2?
I move to recommend Article 2.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
Article 3 is a transfer of funds from several funding sources. From free cash, we have $300,000 to the snow and ice deficit, $121,379 to the school department for the Medicaid reimbursement, and $65,000, which is basically from levy capacity that was anticipated to go to the school department from cannabis host community agreement revenue. But because that revenue couldn't go directly into their budget, we needed to basically correct that in the special town meeting here. And again, that's going for health department, staff, and programming. That's it.
Any questions from the board? Can I have a motion to recommend Article 3?
I move to recommend Article 3.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
Article 4 is just 3 prior year unpaid bills, 1 for carbon colors for administration-related funding, and 2 for the rec department for ASAP sprinkler, for sprinkler testing.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to recommend Article 4?
Move to recommend Article 4.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
Article 5 under the special is the last article. This relates to utilizing $345,339 from free cash for the capital items listed there. And I think either Eric or Colin could explain if there are any questions.
Yep. Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Selectwoman Winstrom.
Thank you. Is there a reason this is on the special and not an annual, since it's for the next budget year? Why wouldn't it be on the annual town meeting?
Sure. A few of these departments have requested to purchase this equipment as soon as possible, and given that the town meeting is quite a bit earlier than we've had it recently, it'll save them almost 2 months of time putting it in the special. That's the only reason. The certified free cash is already certified. So normally, if this was in the annual, they would just have to wait till July 1st to place their orders. So by putting
So then is the title capital improvements for FY 2023 really pseudo misleading because it's going to be done in FY 2022?
Sure. So the funds would be available now, but it was part of, I guess I'd call it the fiscal 23 capital plan that was planned out. And so the title itself is not binding on the article in any way. It's really just to identify what the intent and purpose is. Only the language in the actual article itself is really the legal language for the article.
I mean, I don't have an issue. I just think, when we say we're, it's for capital improvements in FY 2023, they're really FY 2022. So, some people don't read the fine detail.
I can add to the explanation in the guidebook that we're purchasing them now. Basically what I just explained, I'll put it in the explanation. This will allow us to purchase them a little earlier, but the items were conceived as part of the fiscal '23 plan. But we're putting them in the special so they can be purchased in May rather than July. Would that?
That's fine. I just think it's,
Any further questions from the board? Can I have a motion to recommend Article 5?
I move to recommend Article 5.
Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
Great. On to the annual. Article 1 is the annual town report, which we have hard copies and it's available on the website.
Okay, so on this, we need motion to place and recommend.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions about Article 1? Can I have a motion to place and recommend Article 1?
I move to place and recommend Article 1.
Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
All right. Article 2 is the budget, so I will pull that up. Actually, I think to start, unless people have questions on other items, I'm going to pull up the budget presentation I gave at the last meeting. There was a few particular line items I asked board members to think about in a bit more detail. So I'm not going to go through this. I have all of the major fixed cost budget drivers here, contractual increases, etc. Our funding available for allocation. So we had about $500,000 in new requests. This included 4 FTE firefighter positions, police sergeant, a highway skilled laborer, $50,000 in road maintenance, an assistant library director, half-year funding, increase in the rec department, and the police department part-time records clerk. Those are what I'd call the above-level service requests. In my recommended budget, which will really become your recommended budget at town meeting, so you can certainly change these as you see fit. I have a placeholder of funding 2 of the 4 requested firefighters, restoring the police sergeant, the $50,000 in road maintenance to keep with our long-term plans, and the increase in the rec department field maintenance. And so I have unfunded requests right now of 2 of the 4 full-time firefighters, the highway skilled laborer, the assistant library director, and the police department part-time records clerk positions.
I will open it up to the board. Selectman Rowe.
How are we on finalizing, or how does the budget, how is the budget, I guess I'm going to ask this the right way, but how are we on the veteran services in the proposed budget?
The proposed budget has the veterans agent at 35 hours per week. That's the current MOA we have. As you know, it is in negotiations with us right now, but I have the current 35 hours in there.
All right. Because of that line item, I'll be voting against the budget because of that line item. I think that it's become a very political move. We use excuses like it's because of negotiations, it's because of signed agreements, and for a year, we've had an opportunity to fix this, as I opposed it last year, and we're not fixing it. To propose hiring new people, and then just cutting one person in the whole town's hours, especially in the area of veteran services, I think is a disservice to the town. So I'll have to vote, as long as that's in the budget, I'll have to vote to oppose the budget. Thank you.
Selectwoman Winström.
thank you. I really would like us to talk about some of the unfunded requests versus what was funded in terms of that, the difference in how we came to the conclusion that you did. Because I truly think, in 5 years and probably even longer before that, the highway has requested a skilled labor, and there's always a reason that we kick it out. For some years it's, a deficit or different things, but I think, I see other positions come in that are new requests, and they're funded right away. So I think, to just continually kick that out without offering a fair assessment to the position and the department, whether it's bringing Mr. Hustins in, which is a little late at this point, I guess, but I'd like us to have a meaningful conversation about that. And the same thing as the library director, the assistant library director. I think they were very thoughtful in bringing it in as a half a year this year to try to restore a position that they lost a number of years ago due to retirement, and it was of the retirement kind of at the right time, meaning we had a deficit, we had to fill some gaps, we had a retirement. So rather than bring somebody on and lay other people off, we decided not to fill that position, and it's gone unfilled. And they were very thoughtful in their presentation and how they approached it this year. So I think that's another one that deserves, some conversations about with folks, how we, whether there's the opportunity to add those in and still make the budget work, or talk about what it is versus the new request. It's always hard to pit departments against each other and positions against each other, but sometimes those are the tough decisions we have in front of us. And I'd like us to have those conversations this evening about those two positions in particular.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I can bring that up for you to address your point. So I just wanted to bring up a request about the funding left in the budget, the excess levy capacity, so I just put that on the screen for reference.
Okay. Selectman Eldridge.
I'll go back.
Well, so what are we looking at for excess levy capacity right now? Based on the recommended for?
On the recommended, there's $422,196 available. Again, and the caveat, we talked about it a few times, and this is really kind of goes back to the board, is that's basically our cannabis host community agreement funding. We have $600,000 in the budget, so even funding the 2 firefighter positions is, I'll call it dipping into that a little bit, and there's some uncertainty. Again, so it's really, I think, a long-term decision of the board. When that funding goes away, we do have the excise revenue, which I expect will continue. And some of that, certainly any of it, all of it, after 3 years could be, put back into the budget. Right now, it's funding roads, which is another priority. So there's some funding available, but just over the next 3 to 5 years, that funding may change, and funding some of these now just may have an effect on how much we can, again, put towards roads in the future. So that's a decision that's, again, a little outside of my wheelhouse. I definitely think these are all worthy requests. Absolutely, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and let me just, so make sure that I understand, based on the recommendations, so from a capital asset, we said we're going to take about $350,000 so that we don't have any new borrowing, right? We're putting in $685,000 into stabilization to get that number up, right? And we did another 200 into the road stabilization, like we said we were going to do. Correct?
Correct.
And then there's all the other things that are in there, but we were able to continue to fund those, and we're looking at the 422 now. What was excess levy in last year? In the budget?
563. Again, that was finalized based on the actual numbers. Okay. And again, this will, the numbers are a little conservative, so they'll probably be a little bit higher. I think we're going to get a little bit more than 600,000 in the excise and in the cannabis, but don't want to be too aggressive. But we had 563,000. That's what we closed out in excess levy last year.
But the issue is not necessarily fiscal '23. It's if the host agreement, that money goes away and we don't have it, we've already committed to that unless we're going to have to, go back and shrink down those groups. That seems like the biggest risk, is that we've now committed to that, and if we don't get that revenue in the future, then we might have some risk there. Correct?
Accurate.
Okay.
Selectwoman Kellabokas.
Yeah, can you go back to?
I lost a couple slides there. Oh, wrong PowerPoint. Here we go.
So I've been thinking a lot about the assistant library director as well, after they came in and explained some of that. I don't know, so I'm not entirely sure. I'm listening to your highway as well. I'm trying to find maybe some creative alternatives. So if the assistant library director position that they're looking for, maybe we could have a discussion instead of funding an entirely new position, maybe trying to figure out how we could allocate some extra hours to the library to use as far as clerical, et cetera, maybe give them some help that way if we can't fund an entire half this year, because then next year we're going to be committing to doing the whole. So I don't know if others would be open to having maybe some creative discussion surrounding that, at least for the assistant library director, because the library is so important. And like Hillary said, they've been waiting for a while to get a replacement, waiting patiently for a while to get the replacement. And that might be some meaningful way to show that we recognize their worth and we're working on it within the budget, and at least we're inching towards where they want to be. I don't know others' thoughts on that, but that's my thought.
Okay. This is as every year, it's a tough budget year, and there's a lot of requests, and every year we have a lot of requests. And as you said, every request, I can understand the need, and, it's up to us to determine, what is the greater need. Every single year we do this, right? And previous years, we really haven't hired a lot of people on the municipal side at all. Right now, we're recommending 3 people, which is the most I think if that passes, the most I think that we've passed from the municipal side since I've been here. And I could look at each one of these requests, and I understand why they need somebody. But this is a year where we're trying to pass the school, and we're already committing $1 million to the operational budget, and so I think we really do need to, make a lot of tough decisions, and it is tough decisions. As Selectwoman Widdowstrom said, the highway department. So I talked to Jim when he recommended his budget. I went to the budget meeting. He's informed me that when he started in 1999, there's actually 10 people in the highway department. Now there's 8. And over the years when people have left, they weren't replaced. So that's been a long time. So I do hear the need from the highway department, and I agree that is a need. But it's really a matter of timing at this point. I don't think we can fund too many more than 3 full-time positions this year, especially with what's going on with the school. I think, Wes had a pretty compelling argument that I think it's time to add a couple of firefighters that would help out immensely with what he has to do and what's on what he needs to do. And I think there's further discussions we're going to need to have with the firemen also. We should be working with them on a continuous basis, and I think we're going to need to do that coming forward over the next year. The police department, the agreement that we made, or the discussion, was that during COVID we had a shortfall, so we reduced that position and we would put it back at some point. Right now, we're really talking about investing in public safety this year. If this recommendation goes through, it would be 2 firefighters and a policeman. So it's always tough decisions we have to make when it comes to this. I would agree with everything up there, that everything's, needed at some point. I just don't think we can do it all in 1 year. So I think that's kind of the discussion we need to have is, what's our priorities we're going to have this year moving forward. And these are always tough decisions. So I said my say. I'll kind of go around the room one more time and see if we can come to some type of consensus. And if not, we'll have to continue talking about it, I guess, or vote on what the majority of us agree on. Who would like to start it? Would you like to start it off?
I'll start. Yeah, thank you. So what I would like to see funded is 40 hours for the veterans agent, highway skilled laborer. And this is one of those jobs, too, that it may cost you $59,000 to hire one, but you might save on the other end in overtime and in contractors hired during the wintertime for plowing and sanding. So, there might be some savings associated with that. Assistant library director, I agree, long time. They've been sitting there without it. They get overlooked every single year. So I'd like to see that funded too. So the highway skilled laborer, the library director, and the full veterans hours is what I would support. Thank you.
Selectwoman Winterstrom.
I would just have to disagree with one statement you said, meaning that this is a tough budget year. We've never had a budget year in my 14 years of service that's had pretty much this much excess levy capacity on top of, the potential for 100,000 more. And if you add those line items up, it's less than the 100,000 that will probably end up over that 422. And I get that we're borrowing against, potentially future years with the cannabis money, but we roll that dice every year, and we're rolling it on the already 200, plus thousand that's being recommended for positions. So again, it's, there's always a greater need than what we can fill, but if you look at the two glaring ones that are unfilled, those have been unfilled for, I would say, 5+ years. And in the case, obviously, of the skilled highway department labor, probably close to 10 to 12+ years. So there's always going to be something that comes in and jumps it. We're going to be able to rationalize any decision we make. I think it's time when we're looking at that kind of excess levy capacity that we step up to the plate. It's the right thing to do for the community, in my mind, for all of those positions. Thank you.
Selectman Eldridge.
I guess, Matt, I got a question for you. So we're at 422, and if I look at the highway skilled laborer and the library director, and I assume that there's benefits that may be associated with some of these as well. But just looking at it here, that's I'm looking at 83K. That gets us down to excess levy down to 339. What does that give you any discomfort? Is that something that, I know you made some difficult decisions in there as a starting point, and we had difficult decisions when we were doing the capital items as well. There's at the end of the day, we all wish we had a lot more money than we really do. But what is your impression on that 339? If that's what the excess levy is to start, is that something that we have some concerns about, or is that something that, we'll figure it out?
To be honest, if the board is comfortable with it, I would be comfortable with it. I think what Selectman Rowan Winterstrom just said regarding, the highway laborer and potentially some savings there, whether it be overtime or other things, or maybe some contracted services we can cut out. I think there'll be some return on investment there. And, for the library director, assistant library director position, having that sort of right hand will probably really help the library increase their programming, so the director isn't having to do so much of the sort of administrative director type things that they have to do now, that an assistant could help them out. So, there's a real benefit to the community, a tangible benefit for both of those positions. They're definitely warranted. And when I mentioned it's kind of a decision for you, I agree with Selectman Winterstrom that we make the tough decisions every year, and if we have to make some tough decisions 3 years down the road, and again, the budget's very fluid every year, that I would still be at a level funding those two positions that I was comfortable with if the board was, as long as we're all aware that we're just going to have to be watching the budget very close for the next couple of years, which we would be doing anyways. But I don't have terrible concerns, especially when we're only talking about one, maybe two positions. The library director would be phased in over 2 years. Certainly, in 2 to 3 years, and the cannabis funding goes away, and we realized that it was going to have a real big impact, there's probably areas through attrition where you can hold off on then rehiring a position or something else. So I don't anticipate hiring one or two means if that cannabis funding goes away, we're immediately going to fire one or two people. We would work through attrition and grow it into the budget and absorb it. If we were going to spend that down to zero now, I would be very uncomfortable with that, but just those two in particular, I'm not terribly concerned if the board is supportive.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that, we have a responsibility to be conservative and make sure that, we are responsible with this. But, you're talking about the library and the programming there, and correct me if I'm wrong, that starts the second half of the year, correct? That's being phased in. And then obviously when you're talking about the highway department and the roads and all the things that we have there, it's the one that we hear the most about, not just repairing the roads, but, ongoing maintenance and all the things that need to be there. We do have a responsibility to not just be conservative, but also ultimately provide the best services to the town. So, I'm not opposed to sitting there saying, geez, we should put those items in there.
You had asked about health insurance. We have a $150,000 buffer in there in case there's a new hire or if you added a new position tonight. So that's pretty standard what we have in there. So that's not going to ruin the health insurance budget if you make any changes tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. It's always, I like to factor that in there. And I do think it's, I'm not opposed to that. I look at it and say, gee, that might be a way to get additional services. I know that some of these folks have been waiting for a long time and they work hard. So I would actually be in favor of that, given what you said, to look at adding in that 83 in those positions as part of the budget.
How much is that you'll be adding, did you say?
I'm looking at the 59 for the skilled labor and then the assistant library director. It's 83 this year. I believe that the assistant library director in '24 would then turn into 48 or, whatever
An additional 24,000.
Yeah, an additional 24,000 on top of that, plus whatever COLA and comes with that. But I had it as about 83,000
Okay.
this year.
Selectwoman Keller-Bocas.
I'd be in favor of adding the highway skilled laborer and the assistant library director in for this year. I think it's important, given that it's been so long since we've promised them a position. We're finally able to do it. And I absolutely would vote to add in the highway skilled laborer and assistant library director.
Add to and keep the firefighters and police?
Yeah.
Okay. So, last year when it came to the marijuana, the host impact fee of the marijuana, we tried to keep all of that last year. We saw the benefit of that with free cash. This year we were trying to also not spend a lot of that. That's $600K, and with what, so what are we at, about
339.
330, I was going to say 340. It's easier for me to think of it like that. So from 600 to 340, we're 260K, in the hole if the cannabis does go away. As Colleen, or Representative Gary said when she was here, we had discussions with her afterwards that according to the bill that they have in front of them, the host impact fee, if that passes and nothing else passes, it's a good chance that it does go away. I know Town Administrator Hanson has been working with her. I've been trying to work with her to see if we can get that through. I think the communities that went through all the pain and agony of getting marijuana into, going through all the approval processes and everything else should benefit from this. And as I said to Representative Gary, we get 3% of the tax revenue, the state gets 17. They don't have to justify their 17, but somehow they determined that we need to justify every single penny of our 3. As I've talked to the Cannabis Control Commission at the MMA a couple of years ago, I'm like, what are you going to write, 10 pages of regulations of what's acceptable and what isn't? And they go, well, it might come to that. So it's just kind of, ridiculous that's where we're at with the, the host impact fee. When I look at this, I mean, honestly, I get the highway. I feel guilty not even mentioning it before. We almost put 2 highway people a couple years ago before COVID hit. We were discussing that at one point, right? And I can see the real benefit, of the highway. I'm just concerned about the 5-year budget. If we pass this, then it seems like in 3 years, from what I remember seeing from the 5-year budget, we would be in a deficit in 3 years. So, those are my biggest concerns. My biggest concern really isn't, that these positions are needed or not needed. I could see the need for each one. If it all has to be this year, I'm still, I would prefer to do it over a couple years, if possible, but, I guess we'll have to just keep continuing to discuss.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Selectwoman Lindstrom.
when we look at what, where we, the 5-year budget, which is important, but not something we live and die by the sword on, right? It's for planning purposes, it's a budget, it's our best guess. I would say we were, and continue to be, ultra-conservative in our revenue growth numbers. So in those revenue growth numbers, we were very, very conservative about both new growth. We are always, which is why we end up with, extra $100,000+. Our excise, our motor vehicle excise is always, very conservatively, and rightfully so, but I think we're to the point that if we're going to be we're so conservative and we're so caught up in that, where are we going to be 5 years from now? I mean, where we were 5 years from now, 5 years ago, we couldn't even afford half of these positions, but yet we find ourselves having them. So it's a roadmap and a guide, and I appreciate all the work that's put in by so many to come up with that, but I think if we live and die by that, we're depriving the town of much-needed services, especially in a year where we know we can afford it for the next couple of years. We don't have a crystal ball. 5 years from now, I mean, we could be where we were 10 years ago with million-dollar deficits. Who knows? But to say the town doesn't deserve those positions now, I think is a disservice to our community. We can afford it. We can afford it for a couple of years. So let's do the right thing for as long as we're able to.
So one of the things, and I agree with everything that you just presented, one of the things that we haven't had is the hotel should be opening back up. That will provide more revenue for the town. A second cannabis license, if they get up and running, will produce more revenue and may offset that host agreement that we lose from the first one. The growing facilities, if any of those come up, there'll be more revenue there. And I agree, the excise tax and new growth is always conservatively stated. So again, I support what you said, that we can afford it now, and there is potential revenue in the future that can support it. And we don't have a crystal ball. We could lose some things, but we could gain some things as well. Thank you.
Selectman Eldridge.
Yeah, just reiterate, I mean, I am definitely conservative fiscally, and, you know, David, I'm sure, can appreciate that, one of the tenets for accounting. But at the end of the day, I do think that we do need to deliver services. I think that these are valuable services. I do think that we are being conservative, right? We're phasing in some of the things with the, with fire. I do think that there are some things that we said, okay, let's hold off on some of that on the capital side as well. So, you know, I am in favor of, you know, adding those 2 additional positions. I do think that we're gonna have to keep track of a close eye on the budget anyway, and where revenue projections are. There's a lot of uncertainty that's gonna be here for, you know, the next several years, but that's almost how it always is. So I do think that we should look at adding those 2 positions into the budget, and it still leaves us, you know, with some extra levy capacity.
Mr. Chair, before someone makes a motion, I did just want to note the Finance Committee, they actually voted not to recommend the budget because they wanted all 4 of the firefighters funded the first year. That was their only comment on the budget. So just food for thought. They went really a different direction on that. You know, I did explain to Billy that I think we really plan on spending a lot of time talking to the fire and really looking at their 5-year plan and what that looks like, but funding 4 full-time positions in one department without really looking at the 5-year plan first was certainly too much for me to handle. Not that it's not warranted, but I just felt like it warranted some more discussion first. But just FYI, they were recommending all 4 and made no other recommendations.
Thank you for that.
May I ask a question there?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So how does our ambulance revenue look now as compared to a year ago?
It's good. They've made over $300,000 in the first 6 months of this year, and so their budget is 570 some odd thousand this year, and they're on track to make over 600,000, just over 600,000.
So $30,000 over.
Yeah.
Not quite enough to pay for another firefighter, but maybe, and the collections, I mean, when you say that when you report that that's the revenue, is that the collected revenue?
Yeah, I try and really only focus on that money actually coming in.
Okay, so that's a collected revenue, and we still have some that we're trying to get paid on.
Correct. I mean, it might be, if that continues all the way into the fall and they can prove almost a full year out of COVID over 600,000, they could probably potentially fund maybe a half an extra person in there.
Well, maybe that's something that you could wait and see what happens and bring it back at the special town meeting in the fall and fund another firefighter if that revenue increases.
We can look at all options. Selectwoman Windsor, did you?
On the same vein of when we are looking at overtime, when we're putting that police sergeant position back in, and I remember I had this conversation directly with the chief when he was here for his budget. Did we look at that overtime and what putting an additional position back in would do? Because I think there was a lot of overtime built into there based on being down staffing. So again, you know, we're putting another position in, but have we gone back and fine-tuned the numbers from the presentation to know that maybe it's not quite that exact number that's going in?
Sure. So I talked to them about that. To start with fire, given his history the last year or two with the union contract, even adding the new positions, he was hesitant to immediately cut the overtime budget this year, but he's committed to looking at it closely, and if it actually pans out that it is reducing overtime, you know, adjusting the budget next year. But he's already basically fully expent on his overtime budget this year and trying to work really hard to maintain it. So it's something that both of them are looking at, and same thing with the police department. This was a really peculiar year with people out and injuries, and then with the position down, so it was a little hard to calculate exactly what restoring the position was going to do. So because they maintained their overtime budget since before they lost it, so it's going to kind of be putting them back up to where they should be. but one person being in or out can really throw that off $20,000 or $30,000 if they have a serious injury. So we're going to track it really closely on both departments, but we haven't cut any of their overtime budgets just yet because of the two positions. But it's something we're committed to looking at.
I mean, I think that's one way if we really feel like we're, you know, penny pinching, which I would argue we're not. That's two areas that we say, well, you know, we're going to look at it next year. Well, we probably should have looked at it years ago, but that being said, you know, we're in a position to afford those two positions, so.
So, you know, when I've looked at this budget, you know, as I said, I understand the need for each of these positions that we've talked about. You know, I think we've been very fiscally cautious, however you want to say that, over the past few years, and I think that's been a huge benefit. And you know, I feel if we do put these positions in, that next year it has to be even skinnier. We just can't hire that number of people every single year, or we will be in trouble. So we're basically making an agreement now that these are the most important positions over the next couple of years. You know, and you know, that gets a little concerning to me. You know, as I said, I would love to do it over 2 years, but you know, I understand the board's discussion tonight, the need for each of these, adding new services, you know, to the town, getting more done. I do understand that, but I just think we're going to have to be extra fiscally cautious next year. And, you know, having, you know, when the fire chief was here, I think we got to have, you know, we need to have some working sessions with him to really dig into, you know, everything associated with the fire department. It's personnel, we're talking about Central Fire Station, is the Lakeview Station, is that inhabitable? There's over $2 million in equipment on the 5-year capital plan right now. So there's a lot of discussions we got to have with the fire department. That's all I'll say for now. Selectwoman Kellabokas, do you have a?
I have nothing to add. I think I've made my position pretty clear. I'd like to add those two in. I'd be happy to make a motion to do so. To Rick's point, I think, to Selectman Rowe's point, I think when Colleen Gary came in here as well, she mentioned additional funding that was going to be coming over the next year or two for public safety or whatever that would include firefighters. So I think saying two now and coming back to look at whatever additional funding we have or whatever Colleen Gary can get through, I think would be a beneficial plan. I don't want anyone to think that we're forgetting their request, but I like this with the addition of the highway skilled laborer and the assistant library director.
Okay. Any further discussion? So can I have a motion, please?
I move to add the highway skilled laborer and the assistant library director positions into the fiscal year '23 funded requests.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. That's to, for the new personnel that we'd be adding to the budget.
Discussion, please.
Discussion.
I'll support that motion, and I'll support this budget with the understanding that we're still negotiating the veterans agent. So I strongly support the highway laborer and the assistant library director, so I'll vote for that. And hopefully, through negotiations, before the budget is presented, that we will restore the veterans agent's hours to 40 and not keep it at 35. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So do I have a motion and a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 5-0-0. Is there anything else anything else the board wanted to discuss about the budget? We just went through, we all set with the budget?
A lot of the other items will come up in different places in the warrant, most of the rest of them.
Okay, just wanted to double check with the board.
Already open. Okay, transfer funds. Compensation of elected officials. This is one, I still have some yellow on here because I wanted to note that the sewer commission they have a recommended salary request of for their stipend of $2,500 and $2,000. And I have in my recommended column for the stipends, the same stipends for the Board of Health and the Planning Board. You remember they did the same last year and we recommended that amount in an amendment came from the Finance Committee and it passed overwhelmingly to make their stipends consistent. So there's really two options here. We could just make the recommendation for the article to be consistent, but show that their request was higher and they would have to advocate for it on town meeting floor, or conversely, we can put their recommended request of the $2,500 for the chair and the $2,000 for the members in the recommended column, and then I expect from speaking with the Finance Committee, they're going to make the same motion again this year to reduce it to be consistent, and it passed overwhelmingly last year, so just thought it may be easier to put the recommended amount, which I anticipate is what town meeting would fund, but it's really up to you whether you want to put the request forward and go through that motion.
Any discussions about this?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Did we hear anything from the sewer commissioners? I mean, it's been a year since that happened. Is there?
I reminded them again. I talked to Kathy about it, that it got funded last year, and they said again, they would like that amount, so they'd like to request it again. They understand it got kicked out last year, but they're going to probably keep requesting it. Their position is that that's the stipend they want.
Okay, any further discussion on the recommendation of our town administrator?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and just my thought that, all board members are underpaid in town and they put a lot of time in. So, if what I would like to see is a citizen, and I guess a board member for another week or two.
I was going to say, you're still here, Rick, come on. Yeah.
But I would like to, if the sewer commission was going to recommend or ask for that, then I think the other boards should ask for the same as the sewer commission, and then the Board of Selectmen be adjusted accordingly. That's my thoughts. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen puts the most time in, more than 2 or 3 or 4 times what other board put in because of the different committees that board members commit to. So, so it would obviously change the whole scale, and I know that changes it, but it's well-deserved by anybody that puts the time into in town.
Any further discussion?
I'm fine with the recommended amount. I think, we don't always get what we ask for, but you don't get what you don't ask for, so they've asked for it, and this is what we're recommending, and that's why we have town meeting.
Agreed. Any further discussion? Can I have a motion to place and recommend this article?
I move to place and recommend Article 3.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Town Administrator, Article 4.
Article 4 is just an annual transfer to the OPEB trust fund. The amount is $52,500.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just a question, what's our balance in that fund now?
I sent it to the board a few weeks ago. Dave, do you remember him? I think it's close to
I'm gonna bring her up right now.
All right, I'll let him give us the exact amount.
Thank you.
It's been accruing interest.
Does that count towards our stabilization at all?
It counts towards our bond rating, not like directly.
Not stabilization.
Yeah. Got it handy.
Would you like that before we vote, Selectman Rowe?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was that it looked much better because of some of the adjustments that we had made,
Right.
and it's just, it was in much better shape, but we can have them give us the exact number.
Can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 4.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 5.
This is the ambulance enterprise fund budget. There was a tweak of a couple $1,000s when we finalized their indirect cost and fringe benefits with health insurance, but this hasn't changed. It's basically 2 officers, 24/7.
Okay, any discussion? Can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 5.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Article 6.
Great. Sewer budget, Kathy came in and explained this. If there's any questions?
Open up the board. Any questions on Article 6? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend Article 6?
I move to place and recommend Article 6.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Article 7.
Article 7 is the PEG budget as presented by Roni at your last meeting, our media director, which includes a replacement of the Castus, which, as I noted to the board, had a near critical failure that night, so ironic.
Okay, any questions about Article 7?
Mr. Chair.
Selectman Winstrom.
Thank you. So transferring this 215 out, what is, believe, the balance in that fund?
There's a little over 800,000 in there right now. It'll be a high 7. I think there's 815,000 approximately. So
33 or so.
that 60,000 is basically dipping into it, but so it'll be high 700,000 range
Before this transfer?
after this transfer.
Oh, after this transfer?
Yep. We'll still have about $750,000. Oh, over $750,000.
We're
And
going to
we
need
are
it. With the
negotiating.
shrinking, with everybody cutting the cable cord, we're going to need it. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
That in there.
Okay, that was discussion. Can I have a motion, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 7.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 500. Article 8, Community Preservation Fund.
Great. The Community Preservation Fund made 1 or 2 sort of minor changes at their last meeting since this board discussed. Oops, I'm going to back out and just go to presentation mode. Microscopic weed treatment. They increased the costs slightly for the town center walking trails and parking lot to allow for a little bit of a buffer of $275,000. We're opening bids on that project this week. $40,000 was the estimate for a walking trail connecting this building to the town hall site, again, contingent upon getting easements approved, and obviously we're in continuing discussions with both of those landowners. The one thing that they changed was the Winslow School abatement / cleanup. The abatement quote we had for $110,000, which the CPC approved about 3 years ago, was old now, and with costs going up, they wanted to get that work started up again and done, but they wanted to add a buffer in here before we put it out to bid. And they also had some discussions about that abatement work has to be done whether the building gets torn down or renovated. But if there was a little bit of a buffer there, they wanted some flexibility, so if when the abatement work is taking place, if they take out half of a ceiling to remove a pipe, they would have the money to just go ahead and take the entire ceiling out, something like that. So they wanted a little bit of a flexibility when they're doing the abatement and the cleanup to do, I'd call it a little bit more of a cleanup and exploration of the building during that abatement work, because the abatement was in, numerous places throughout the building, the asbestos. So they wanted really an escalation contingency in there and just some additional funds for the Winslow School as part of that abatement work. Again, initially that $110,000 was approved a few years ago but with other priorities, it didn't get done yet. So that's really changed or been added since the first time we discussed the draft warrant with you.
Okay, I'll open up discussion. Article 8.
I just have a question. Are we storing anything in that Winslow School anymore, records?
We do still have some records there, yes.
My suggestion would be to look into, with all these new storage facilities being built in town, to maybe transfer them into a storage facility and get them out of there. They're just going to get destroyed there. They've been there for so many years, and hopefully we can someday get them like electronically saved, but maybe that might be a viable option in the future.
Yeah, the prices are pretty reasonable, actually. We kind of thought about that and tossed it around, but I think we can take a real serious look at that now. Like you said, we have plenty of them in town close by if they still need to get access, just as close as the Winslow School. No, that's a good idea. I appreciate it.
Any further discussion?
What's the
Selectman Eldridge.
What's the balance that they've got now? So they're appropriating 876. What are they in for reserve and all that?
093. They have over $2 million in reserves now, and we're anticipating $1 million in revenue this year. So they're not even going to be spending all of their fiscal 23 revenue. You know, a pretty good portion of it, but they're still going to have more money going into reserves. I think it's about 2.3 million they have.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 8.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 500. Article 9, deposit stabilization funds.
The warrant has been updated, but, you know, excuse the PowerPoint here for the general stabilization fund. We have $74,162 going back into the Valley Collaborative, turn back going into the Special Ed Stabilization Fund, $10,000 for the Stormwater Stabilization Fund. And just remember, about 2 years ago, this was in the stormwater budget, and we took it out of the operating budget and decided to put it into the stabilization fund each year, just so if it didn't get spent, it would stay with the department. But that was originally a general fund item. That's why it's coming from fiscal 23 receipts rather than free cash. It's $685,000, I believe, going into the general stabilization fund and $200,000 in the road stabilization fund. I'll just pull up the warrant to double check.
Any discussion? Can I have a motion to place and recommend, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 9.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Article 10.
Oh, this is authorization to spend from the stabilization funds this year. We have $800,000 potentially from the road stabilization fund and up to $30,000 from the stormwater stabilization fund. Some of the other stabilization funds we'd likely put those on the fall town meeting if we do actually need them. These are ones that we anticipate we might need, you know, during the summer and over the year. But for the other ones, we'll only bring those up in the fall or another special town meeting if we actually end up needing to spend the funds.
Open up the board. Any discussions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 10.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 11.
Absolutely. Article 11 is borrowing for $181,447 for the capital asset fiscal year 2023 plan. This is not new borrowing, it's reallocating funding that the town didn't use from a previous borrowing authorization. So as a part of this year's plan, the Capital Asset Management Committee asked me to identify funds that had been previously approved and either the project was abandoned or it came in under budget. So there's two articles on here that deal with funding that comes from previously approved projects. Article 11 deals with the funding that was from projects that were originally borrowed and haven't been paid off. According to bond counsel, in order to reallocate that savings to new projects, we needed this article, which looks like you're borrowing, but this money has, in all transparency, been borrowed already. So essentially what the town will do, and this may be too much information, but we'll pay down the existing debt of $181,447, and then this article will allow us to use that savings to reallocate it to the 3 projects that are listed here.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 11.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 12.
Similarly, this deals with funding that was approved for previous capital asset projects but was not spent. The difference is items in Article 12 were funded by free cash, so all we need from town meeting is a vote to transfer the funding.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 12.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 13, establish road maintenance revolving account.
I think we used to get a very nominal amount of money from our road opening fees, $50 here and there, and we didn't have a pavement impact fee. As soon as we started receiving our first pavement impact fee, Jake said, "So how do I spend that money now?" And I said, "Oh, well, that money comes to the general fund." So he'd like to make a road maintenance revolving, similar to what we do with other accounts. And this really makes sense because the pavement impact fees and the road opening fees are supposed to go back and be invested into that network. The only way you can do that is through establishing a revolving account. So money goes in and then it can be spent for that same purpose. So.
Any questions about Article 13? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 13.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of Article 13?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 14.
This is just continuing to approve the expenditure limits for all of our revolving accounts. So the only change this year would be the addition of the road maintenance stabilization account. And again, these are spending limits. It doesn't necessarily recommend the exact amount in there, the exact amount we will spend. It's an up to limit.
Any questions about Article 14? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 14.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 15.
This is an annual article which authorizes the Board of Selectmen to enter into lease purchase agreements of up to 5 years. Under state law, the board can only enter into lease purchase agreements for up to 3 years without town meeting approval. So this covers anything that might cut them up during the term of the fiscal year, such as our copier lease is really our most popular one. We typically do on a 5-year term.
Any discussion about Article 15? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 15.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 16.
Want to take that? Or-
Absolutely. Article 16. Sorry. So Article 16 deals with 2 amendments to the Capital Asset Management Committee bylaws, a part of the town's general bylaws. The first is to amend Section 3 to reduce the minimum cost of what is considered a capital asset from $50,000 to at least $25,000. And an added caveat that if a department can show it's an unexpected expense that they couldn't handle out of their operating budget, that the committee reserves the right to review it. The challenge that we found with 50 is that most of our departments could not actually fund a capital asset under 50 without coming to the committee. And the second change is just amending the deadline for folks to submit their requests. It previously required that they submit requests by December 1st. In practice, it's always been after that. And so the committee settled on December 31st, which is the timeline we use this year.
Any discussion about Article 16? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 16.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Article 17.
Article 17 and 18, I'll explain a little bit together. So Article 17 is a zoning bylaw amendment which would regulate marijuana delivery establishments. And so we've added a definition of a marijuana courier and a marijuana delivery operator. And they've amended the definition of a medical marijuana treatment center. However, the real main purpose of this is to allow and zone for marijuana delivery establishments. So if we go to the table of permitted uses here, the underlying marijuana courier and delivery operations would be allowed by special permit with site plan review from the planning board, very similar to a manufacturer or a cultivator currently. The purpose of this article to allow it is because Tyngsborough was a yes community that has retail stores here, other delivery operations or couriers that set up in other communities are going to be able to deliver right to homes in Tyngsborough because we're a yes community with retail stores. However, if town meeting does want to ban marijuana delivery, which would mean you can't have a courier business operating here, picking up at our businesses, and/or a business that grows just to deliver to homes, doesn't have a retail store. We could ban that, and that would require a vote at the ballot as well. However, because Tyngsborough is a yes community with retail stores, the CCC does not currently allow us to prevent other delivery operators operating in other towns to deliver to Tyngsborough addresses. So as long as we have retail stores open here, delivery companies or couriers are going to be able to deliver to our residents regardless of what we do. So I think that was one of the thoughts behind the planning board bringing this forward, as well as just to have some type of regulation on it. We're either allowing it or we're not allowing it. But I just want to be clear that even if we do not allow these businesses to open in our community, the act of delivering by a vehicle will still be allowed no matter what.
Yep.
And there is one addition they added. They did want to limit the courier and deliverer licenses to the same as the amount of retail stores we have, which is currently 2. So under the planning board's recommendation, we could have no more than 2 courier businesses and 2 more delivery operator businesses. Courier is a business that just moves product for other businesses. The delivery operator is someone who can grow and deliver their own, but they're delivery only. They don't have their own storefront. Both businesses would have to operate out of the industrial district.
Okay, open up for discussion.
Have nothing.
Seeing none?
Yeah, the only thing I'd want to say, the description you gave and the explanation was great, because I read it twice, compared all the things, and I'm like, all right, what are we doing here? So I think it's really going to be important for us to be very clear on the explanation, both, you know, we'll just replay what
Listen to
he
the
did.
recording. Yeah, absolutely.
What he did on Thursday, we'll do that, and then, you know, at town meeting, because I can see this being very confusing for folks.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 17.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Okay, my left here.
If that does pass at town meeting, we'll probably not make a motion to pull Article 18, just an FYI.
Okay, so we don't need any, we need a motion to at least place it, right?
Yes, we do need a motion to place it on the warrant.
Okay. And then we're not going to make them, are we going to recommend or not recommend?
I mean, it's up to the board if you sort of follow what the planning board is recommending. They're recommending against Article 18. It's there as sort of the backup, but their preference would be to zone it and allow it and regulate it. So we want to put that on there so town meeting has the option if Article 17 fails, but you wouldn't support both articles. And since you supported
Right.
17, I'm assuming you'd vote not to recommend this article, but you do still have to place it, that's correct.
Okay. Do you recommend that we place and not recommend, or do you recommend that we place?
I recommend you place and not recommend.
Have a motion to place and not recommend.
Move to place but not recommend Article 18.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Not recommending.
yes. Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Okay, Article 19?
Try and keep this rather simple as well. We have over 100 undersized lots in our business and industrial zones. This seeks to address an issue when those businesses either go to construct or reconstruct, make a change, anything they want to do on the property. You can use the yellow house as an example, but most of the parcels next to them and around them, the offices across the street, the gas station next to it, if any of them went to change or expand, they don't fit the 2-acre minimum requirement of our business zone or industrial zone. So this seeks to allow the planning board through special permit to reduce any of the dimensional requirements, whether it be frontage, minimum lot area, et cetera. Again, not in residential zones, only in business or industrial zones, as long as they meet the special permit granting criteria, which it's, in line with the harmony intent of the bylaw, the neighborhood characteristics, et cetera. Basically, right now, a business has to go to the zoning board of appeals and apply for a variance, which is very hard to defend in court. There's very little discretion on the zoning board of appeals. And so this is a much more business-friendly approach. It does still provide the planning board with discretion. Special permits are fully discretionary, but the variance process that applicants have to go through is not a very good fit for what we're trying to accomplish.
I think it's good that you should also, in town meeting, also state it's for business only. I mean, I do see the zones here, but I think that's important. Open up for discussion. Selectman Eldridge.
Mr. Chair, so did we have council look at this? Just because I know that we do have some challenges with some of our zoning bylaws, and we're trying to tighten those up, so that this has been reviewed. And
Yes.
they're okay.
Yep.
Good.
Any further discussion? Can I have a motion to place and recommend, please?
I move to place and recommend Article 19.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 20.
This is the town's mandatory recycling bylaw, which currently exists, but the Board of Health has recommended changes to be compliant with the DEP requirements to meet the recycling dividend programs grant program. Basically, our mandatory recycling bylaw didn't have an enforcement mechanism for haulers. So when all the underlying language is new, but the most important thing is right now, haulers are going to be, there's more language requiring haulers to have a mandatory recycling option, whether they're doing it themselves or doing it for others. So this would be, companies that service maybe condominiums who have their own trash pickup, or even if you get your own dumpster, any solid waste hauler in town gets permitted through our Board of Health each year to operate in town. And they basically have to have a recycling option, and they have to inspect their loads to make sure that there's not more than 5% recyclable materials in there, because the DEP doesn't allow that. And this is going to allow the Board of Health or their representatives to issue a fine. Again, this is to the haulers themselves. This is not fines on residents. This is for the haulers. A first offense of $100, second offense of $200, and a third offense or subsequent offenses would be $300 fines. Which would be in the form of a ticket. By amending our bylaw to have an enforcement mechanism with penalties for the mandatory recycling, it'll allow us to remain compliant with those DEP regulations and keep getting those recycling dividends, program grants, potentially others in the future.
And it allows us to get the credits for future grants. That was the key reason
Yes.
they wanted this, right? Okay, I'll open up for discussion.
I have a question.
Selectman Lindstrom.
Thank you. So I know that, it's law, but there's nothing worse than imposing fines that have no, real enforcement behind them. So yeah, you're going to issue a fine just like you could issue a fine for a dog offense, but they don't pay it and there's nobody out there beating down the door and nobody going to come and arrest you or prohibit you from doing anything. So I understand the need that we have to put this language in there, but what is the real enforcement of this going to be? So you get a ticket for the business, the hauler gets a ticket for, $100 and it goes unpaid. And they get a ticket for $200 and it goes unpaid. They get a ticket for $300 and it goes unpaid. There's always a discrepancy of who is the enforcing authority to go and collect that to be sure the behavior is changed.
I'll have council double check on the chapter 40, 21D. I think you're right that our collection rights are very limited. I think the real teeth there, if it went unpaid, is when they came up for a renewal next year, we could potentially not permit them to operate within the town. Like the Board of Health would not grant them a new license. And then I'd have to ask council how defensible that is. So that's where I'm gonna have to check, but I think that would be their plan. They won't let them operate in town anymore, would be the hopes.
Which would make sense if that's allowable by law, but a lot of times it's not. So if we could get an answer on that, I think, again, I don't want to waste a ton of people's time and energy and have this go forward when, in essence, there's nothing we do about it. I get it's for points on a chart, but,
So we recommend we still place and recommend this article? Selectwoman Winstrom, should we still?
we don't have a meeting
Correct.
to not, before. I'm fine with placing it, sure, we can recommend it, but I'd like an answer before town meeting so that if, I'm sure the question's gonna come up at town meeting as to what the real enforcement of this is.
Okay, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
Move to place and recommend Article 20.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 500. Article 21.
Again, this would be a non-really mandatory bylaw, but it would establish a fall town meeting date in our bylaws, which would be the fourth Tuesday in October at 7 o'clock, which is a date we've targeted in the past. And basically establishing a regular date for a fall town meeting will provide more advance notice to residents who need to plan their schedules in advance, to ensure they can attend the town meeting. And it was drafted with the understanding that special town meetings may need to come up at different times in the year, and you could still schedule those as needed, but really the goal of a regular special town meeting would be to have it at the same time each year, and, just to give more advance notice to the residents.
Any discussion from the board?
I was just trying,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just trying to look at subsequent years to see if a fourth Tuesday would ever fall on Halloween. That would be my only concern. It's the fifth Tuesday in 2023.
I did look it up. I did the same thing you did.
Like-
And I don't think it can,
Okay.
because I did the exact same thing, because that would be a very bad thing. True. And if it did, we do have the ability to adjust.
You do.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 21.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 500. Okay, next article.
Article 22 is a maintenance/access easement at 9 Kendall Road, which is the Farwell House. This will authorize the Board of Selectmen to seek and formally accept a permanent easement to allow the town to construct and maintain walking trails in the site, as well as access the shared parking lot behind the site. We've talked about this a few times. This is just the
Yep.
easement.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 22.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion?
Sorry,
Selectwoman Winstrom.
thank you. I should have asked this one earlier, but we've met with Mr. Parkin and know that he's going to not contest this
Yeah, we've met with him several times. He's very positive about the project. Just spoke to him as recently as about 2 weeks ago because the CPC authorized from their administrative account some funds for survey, and I let him know that the survey would be coming out, and it's really, at this point, just contingent upon seeing the final surveyed plans and negotiating the final language with the board. So this is just going to authorize the board to do it, to do the negotiation of the final easement and the authorization to do it, but he's very excited about it, and it's really just contingent upon seeing the final plan and the final language.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 23.
Maintenance access easement for the enclave at Tyngsborough, which council actually just tweaked today. We're going to put that back to the Toll Brothers rather than the condominium. So in the warrant, I just have to update the PowerPoint. I'm more just making a note to myself. It's going to be going back to the Toll Brothers or designee. This is a maintenance access easement that the Board of Selectmen would grant to the Toll Brothers, which are building a 55-plus housing development at the site. It's for the purpose of developing, installing, and maintaining utilities and other required components, including traffic and pedestrian safety measures on public land. Such components are required as part of their special permit issued by the Planning Board. And I have a map here showing the easement line in red in the road for the utilities and in red for the pump station at the more northern part of the site. So those are the areas where the final easement is perceived to go.
Any discussion about Article 23?
In the explanation for printing, can we just spell brothers correctly?
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Nope. Sorry, PowerPoint. 23 brothers.
Any further discussion? Can I have a motion to place and recommend Article 23?
I move to place and recommend Article 23.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 24.
Articles 24 and 25 are both access easements regarding the land at the highway garage or between the highway garage and the park and ride. So Article 24 would be authorization for the Board of Selectmen to accept an easement along what's known as the Brock's property. So I've shown it on the map. They're in the process of working with MassDOT. We've had several meetings with them to help them make introductions, etc. They're making great progress. They would like to make one shared entrance along their property that then both the Park and Ride and the Highway Department can use to access our sites. It'll free up more room on both of our sites by getting rid of our driveway and having one entrance on Middlesex Road rather than the three very close to each other. It'd be much safer from a traffic perspective. But again, that's going to go through the MIPA process and everything. We're not finalizing any plans today, but this would give the board the authorization to accept an easement if terms are come to and it was approved by the state. And then I'll just explain Article 25 is if for some reason that fails, the town still doesn't want three driveways right next to each other, we may offer them an access across our property to access their site. And it would likely be in exchange for some type of other consideration in the future. But for purposes of time to market, they've asked that we put both of these articles on the warrant. So this board has full flexibility, whether it's them giving us an easement or if we need to grant them an easement. Town meeting will really authorize you to have both of those options available. Article 24 is certainly the preferred option, and barring some unforeseen circumstance with the state, that would be the likely route is the Article 24 map. This is really just a backup option, Article 25.
Any questions about Article 24 and 25? Selectman Rowe.
Thank you. So Matt, if 24 passes, do we need 25?
Yeah,
You would still need both of them?
They'd like both.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend Article 24 and 25?
I move to place and recommend Articles 24 and 25.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Middle school debt authorization. I don't know.
26?
Oh,
Yeah, we're,
Oh,
26, yeah, my chart is a little bit off. Sorry.
So this is a request from the Board of Assessors to adopt a provision of state law that would allow us to grant eligible seniors on the basis of age, income, and assets to increase by up to 33%, to bring the current exemption of $750 up to $1,000 for fiscal year '23.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, can I have a motion for Article 26?
I move to place and recommend Article 26.
second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
Article 27 is another request from the Board of Assessors to increase the annual abatement maximum from $1,000 to $1,500 for the senior tax work-off program, which is highly used by multiple departments in town, and the value we get from them, which is basically working off at a minimum wage rate, working off their taxes up to a maximum amount. It's a great benefit to our departments here, and the seniors who do it seem to really like it. Many of them continue to volunteer after. It's a great program.
Any discussion about Article 27? Seeing none, can I have a motion to place and recommend?
I move to place and recommend Article 27.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Article 28.
Great. So this is the middle school debt authorization. We had a tri-board at the last meeting. We're just putting the finishing touches on a presentation. I'm not going to bring you through the presentation. I think the board quasi already voted in support of this, but just not directly through the warrant at the last tri-board when you voted to commit $1 million towards the debt service. So.
Any discussion about Article 28?
Well, I think one thing, we've got Thursday that we need to make sure that any questions or things like that, you know, I wholeheartedly support this, and, you know, I have heard some questions and things that people have concerns about, and I think it's going to be important for us to make sure that we address all of those and that we're very, very clear. And so, you know, if we don't spend time talking about it tonight, even though, yeah, we're all in agreement, I want to make sure that we have ample opportunity on Thursday to cover all of those items, even if people don't have questions. Do we have an are people going to submit questions perhaps if they're not going to be attending in person? You know, that's really going to be our last chance to communicate some of those things. And I just, you know, I know how we all feel on that, but it's much more important that we get the other folks understanding why we feel that way and why this is the right thing for this town now.
I just very quickly want to note, the moderator did set aside 15 minutes for us at town meeting to give a presentation. We have about 35 slides, which are slides that we've taken from most of the community forums and things. So I did want to note it's about a 15-minute presentation. It's not going to just be 1 or 2 slides.
Mr. Chair,
Selectman Lindstrom.
2 things on this. One, are we asking the architect to come and do the presentation?
So their recommendation is that Mike starts the presentation, I discuss a few of the financials at the end, and then they're available. They're going to be sitting in the front row. They'd like to answer technical questions as they come up. So they want to be there just to answer questions.
That's fine. I mean, on an issue like this, it's sometimes better to remove, the people that have been closely involved in it, from that, because then it can have the tendency to become, a reflection of those individuals. Obviously, myself, Mr. Tinarella, you, Dr. Flanagan, have worked tirelessly and had, 80-plus meetings in 2 years on this project. So I get that that's what they want. I might argue with them a little bit and do have all their numbers, that, you know, sometimes it's easier to have those individuals, you know, present the information, just because then it removes some people's personalities, especially at the end of a long night when we might have had disagreements already about it. But, you know, we can work that out. And then my only other, two other comments. One being, I have heard a lot of questions in town about, you know, why aren't we rehabbing the current middle school? Why, you know, all those questions. And I think as much as we've tried to get those answers out there, there's still people that we're not reaching with that message. So it is important to have, you know, continue this discussion and have all of those, you know, kinds of FAQs that we've developed on hand and ready, and maybe both in terms of being able to walk through them a little bit and have some print copies available for people. And then the only other thing is that I would ask that a member of the building committee be the one to present the article, versus, you know, one of us that may or may not be related to the project. And I'm fine to concede that to, you know, my co-chair, Mr. Tenorella.
Any further discussion? And I have a motion to place and recommend, I'll say the middle school debt authorization article, because there was discussion about maybe moving articles around, and I didn't know if we wanted to discuss that tonight. So can I have a motion to place and recommend the middle school debt authorization?
Move to place and recommend the middle school debt authorization.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion?
Well, considering we've placed and recommended all the other ones as numbers, do we have an option where to go with it? You know, arguably, yes, we do, but this probably should be.
It's the
Final
citizen
article.
petitions after this.
Oh, the citizen petitions,
So,
got it.
that would be the only option, is if you wanted it at the very, very end, or,
But it was just discussed last time, and I was going to have, if anybody wanted to discuss it, that's all.
I would be fine leaving it where it is and letting the citizens petitions go last.
Yeah, and I had actually brought that up because we wanted to have it as close to the back as possible, just because we don't want people voting and then leaving and having potential for some other issues. Given that there's 4 citizens petitions, I think that we can comfortably say, all right, you know, let's keep it at Article 28, and then those 4, you know, we can make sure that we let people know to stick around just in case. That would be fine with me.
Okay. Let's see, I have a motion and a second already, right? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that passes 5-0-0. Next article.
this is a home rule petition, and they did submit some slight change, some slightly modified language based on Colleen Gary's request. This is from the Water District, to see if the town will vote to petition the legislature to provide for increased water supply in the town of Tyngsborough with assistance from the Tyngsborough Water District and the Commonwealth, or to take any other action relative thereto. The long and the short is the Tyngsborough Water District is potentially not getting as much water as they'd like from the well on the Hunter Norton property, which they're working to get permitted through DEP. So they'd like the town and the legislature to try and give some support in any way possible. So it's not really a binding article. It's just something to help them, I think, in their negotiations, get some more water out of that well.
Any discussion on Article 29?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, but on these, we place them, but we don't necessarily have to make a vote on a recommendation.
I will leave that up to the town administrator.
In the past, in Tyngsborough, since I've been here, traditionally, I don't believe you have made any recommendation on them, just because they came from citizens, just to give them let them have their due diligence. And you don't even make a recommendation at town meeting. Typically, you ask one of the residents, the moderator will say, was anyone who brought this petition forward or anyone else here like to recommend approval? If no one comes up and recommends approval of the article, then it actually gets passed over, de facto. But you won't be recommending these at town meeting. Someone from the floor typically would, and in the past you haven't. There's nothing preventing you, though, if you want it for or against.
We need to place them, though,
You do
correct?
need to place them.
Any further discussion on this article?
I do have a question.
Yes.
So, I don't understand why it's a citizen's petition and not a request by the water district.
All I can say, Augie, he didn't come in asking for the board to consider putting this on voluntarily. He knew it was only 10 signatures because it was an annual, and he actually brought in the complete signed, petition originally before I'd even seen it. So I think just because the 10 signatures was rather easy. I suppose he very well could have just come in and asked for you to consider putting it on voluntarily.
Only because, I mean, if it was a request by the water district, we'd be more inclined to, vote on a recommendation. Okay.
Any further discussion? So can I have a motion to place the article, please?
I move to place Article 29.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, to place this article. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It passes 500. And I'm assuming, based on the conversation, that's all we're going to do is just place it.
Yep. I don't know, the finance committee did the same thing. They took no action on any of the citizen petitions. Article 30 is a citizen petition, which would reject the 2021 fall special town meeting vote regarding the permission of the Board of Selectmen to file special legislation allowing the town to establish early voting and no excuse absentee voting in municipal elections. The right to vote is sacred. Again, it's not really binding things, but it's sort of an explanation they put in their citizen petition. Early voting should be severely restricted, and then I could actually just go through all of them because they're related. Article 31 is another citizen petition regarding absentee voting to see if the town will vote to reserve absentee ballots, and then they put a plethora of criteria in here, having someone watch someone else sign the absentee ballot, etc. I mean, I won't go through it unless you'd like me to. I mean, you can all read it and it'll be posted on the warrant, but it would severely restrict absentee ballots. That's the intent. And Article 32 is a citizen petition for voter ID, to see if the town will vote to require all voters to validate his or her identity with government-issued photo ID, to vote both in person or by absentee ballot in accordance with General Law, Chapter 54, 76B. Further, we seek to request the Board of Selectmen to file special legislation with the General Court of the Commonwealth to amend MGL, Chapter 54, Section 76B, to require voter ID to vote, etc. And Town Council is prepared to, speak if asked. They won't typically give an opinion, but he said we'll be prepared if asked to discuss really the validity or purpose or what will happen if they vote and any of these passed. So they're prepared to discuss that if needed.
Any discussion on Article 30, 31, and 32? To place the article. Selectwoman Winström.
Thank you for mentioning town council, because I was going to ask if town council had looked and had an opinion on those, because I think it's always important to have the citizens kind of, even though it's not within their purview per se, but to give an opinion to say, even if this is passed in, into your bylaws, it's not legal, right? Or it is legal. And certainly, we all have our personal opinions, I guess, about early voting or absentee voting, but as someone who's worked the polls for a long time now, probably close to 20 years, it's, the voter ID is something that always comes up. People are amazed that they do not have to show any type of identification to vote, only if your census becomes invalid. But, my daughter voted for the first time last election. Nobody ever asked who she was. She could have walked in and said any name and had never voted before. So, what does that tell first-time voters? Does your vote really, it matters, but you might not know who you are. So I think, there's probably some validity to that in general. The other ones, I will leave my opinion aside, but I think they raise they raised some good questions that I think we should be prepared to answer, and maybe even if not law, just have us revisit what actually are our practices when it comes to voter identification.
And as you said, our lawyer will discuss that, and he'll discuss state law, and state law is what he'd be talking about, and we have to follow state law. So whatever the state law is, I believe, is what he's going to end up talking about.
Yes, I mean, a couple of these, the only caveat is 2 of these ask the board to have permission to file special legislation to change state law, to make this the new state law. So, his answer is probably there's a few different points in here that council will address on each of them if asked, which I think it just makes sense just for the public, because they're a little, some of them may be a little confusing, to either have the moderator or this board, or just somebody prepared to say, council, can you explain what the ramifications of this are?
Absolutely.
He won't do it voluntarily, but I think we should just ask up front, just to get it out of the way.
I agree. Any other questions about 30, 31, 32?
I have a question. Hillary, do you think, in your 20 years, have you ever heard of any complaints or violations, or?
No, I don't think any violations. I think there's always a question on, if somebody comes in that's been flagged to show ID and they don't have it. We give them the right to vote, but we don't put their vote in the machine. It has to then go back and be determined, and if it was a close race, who knows what would happen on that. So, there are provisions where everybody, in essence, can vote. If you came in and you were you weren't on the voter list and you couldn't prove where you lived, the town clerk couldn't prove that you were registered to vote, we still have to let you cast a ballot. We don't, it doesn't go into the machine and count. It gets held and then determined at a later date by the town clerk. So everyone always gets to vote, but, it is questionable if someone comes in and a lot of people know everybody in town, but there's a lot of changeover, so,
I think people will ask that question, have we ever had a problem? So maybe clerk's prepared to answer that.
Yeah, good point.
People make, I don't know, seems like sometimes people make something out of nothing.
Any other questions about 30, 31, or 32? I have a motion to place Articles 30, 31, and 32.
I move to place Articles 30, 31, and 32.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500 to place those articles.
I will say it is odd that, people drive in and you ask them for their license and, oh, I left it at home. Don't admit that, the police officer's right there. You'd be surprised, the number of people that do.
Right.
Okay. Is that it, Matt?
That's it.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Not so fast.
Oh, did I hear wrong?
You typically make a motion to post the warrant, and once you're done all your recommendations, if you did want to make that motion.
A motion to post the warrant.
I move to post the warrant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500.
I concur.
Okay, we'll try to get to Selectman Row's, adjournment as soon as we can here, but new business. Approve ARPA expenses.
Colin, do you want to start?
Absolutely. The first ARPA expense request is for the FY 2023 Capital Improvements Plan. This plan has been before the Board of Selectmen before, but these are the items that the Capital Asset Management Committee chose to fund through ARPA funding. You've got $55,000 for SCBA air packs. I do want to note that the communications upgrade, the total cost for that project is $690,000, but as you saw previously on the warrant, we've identified $202,968 worth of previously approved funding. That's Articles 11 and 12. So you're seeing the ARPA request is reduced by that amount at $487,031. Scarlet Brook improvements, the TES playground, Madeline Terrace drainage improvements, and the roof replacement here at Town Hall.
Thank you. Discussion, Selectman Eldridge?
Just to provide additional clarity, so there's, in the special town meeting warrant, there is $55,000 for 6 additional SCBA air packs. We did it split funding on that, so just in case you're looking at what we had originally proposed from the funding on that, we did split funding on it. The thinking on this is we have the money, it's in our bank account, and we can start actually taking advantage of some of these things rather than waiting until, fiscal 2023 on that.
Any discussion?
Are we just discussing the first?
Lindstrom.
Are we just discussing the first one? Are we discussing all 3 items?
Just the capital plan right now, right? Just A.
Okay,
Or
sorry.
I, according to this.
Sorry, thank you.
Any further discussion? Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the spend of up to the amounts listed for the purposes listed next to each item.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that passes 500. Summer school program.
Thank you. Remember when the school committee presented, their budget includes a request of $90,000 of ARPA funding that they anticipate would be a request this year and next year, at which time the program will change or go away or be absorbed into their budget. This is mainly related to the transportation for their new summer school program, to help kids get caught up, really that, started to fall behind mainly due to COVID. So I anticipate this request, if funded this year, will come back again next year, and then, we have their commitment that, they understand ARPA funds will go away, and it will either be absorbed into their budget at that time, or may hopefully not be needed at that point to the same extent.
Okay, any discussion on the summer school program?
Mr. Chair, I think we
Yes.
talked about it before. This is one of the reasons why ARPA funds are there, to get the kids who dealt with a lot of stuff during COVID and a lot of change, and I think the program is great. I was glad that, to see it in there, and I think this is a good use of those funds.
Yep, thank you. Any further discussion? Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the designated amounts for the summer school program as requested.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that passes 500. Bicentennial Field Irrigation Design, Mr. Assistant Town Administrator.
Yes, thank you very much. As this board is well aware, one of the goals of it for quite some time now is to address the irrigation issue at Bicentennial Field. The town spends roughly $50,000 annually watering it. So we have been researching firms that can help address that issue. We've talked about using streams that run parallel to that parcel to fund or to water the fields. As a part of that, we will need a design. We'll have to go through the permitting process with our Conservation Commission. And so tonight we're asking for $45,000 from ARPA funding to fund the design portion. A copy of the proposal from Irrigation Consulting Inc. out of Nashua is here. This will get us to the point where we can then go to the Capital Asset Management Committee with a firm budget for the actual construction of the irrigation system to ask for that funding. And they will stay on board, granted that we get that funding, to manage the construction project once the funding is in place.
Thank you. I'll open up to the board. Any discussion? Selectwoman Lindstrom.
It's been a long time coming, trying to figure out how to effectively water those fields, considering they've been, they were put in, not watered, then they had to be re-put in at an expense to the town. And the burden for that $50,000, lies sometimes in the rec department budget, but a lot of times gets passed off to the youth sports on some formula based on the usage of the fields, and it's not 100% equitable because some youth sports get allocated to the turf fields, so they don't share in that same expense. And I heard it a number of years on the school committee, and I actually remember my first selectman's race. that was a big question came up from people is, what are you going to do to help our youth sports? Because it is the fees were getting astronomical as a result of those organizations having to pass on watering fees. So I say a lot to say it's only taken 5 years. If the individual that asked the question is watching, it only took 5 years. We moved at the speed of government, but I think this is a step in that right direction to be able to maintain those fields, which are an extremely valuable asset to our community.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I know this was on our list, one of our 18 goals for this year, and I know Colin's sick of me asking him about it. I think our costs, so the costs are high now, and they're only going to get higher because we're using drinking water to water those fields. And, for those that understand that water is a tough commodity, and certainly drinking water even more so, I think that this is a good investment. And I'm glad to see this move forward. And it will be great when we potentially get that payback in that 5 to 6 year time frame.
And again, it's within 5 or 6 years, this all pays for itself, and then after that, we could water the fields, at no cost, just to maintain this device. This has been a goal since I've been on the Board of Selectmen, and, I just really want to thank Colin. I think he's had this on his list for about 9 months, and he pulled it right through. So, great effort, Colin. Appreciate the effort. I think this would be a great asset to the community to get this, and again, this will pay for itself within 5 to 6 years. Any further discussion? Can I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize $45,000 from ARPA funding to fund the design portion of the Bicentennial Field watering project and authorize the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Irrigation Consulting for such services.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Discuss insurance options, 250 Middlesex Road. Mr. Town Administrator.
Great. Working on together. I'm going to pass this over to Colin. He's really been the point person on this.
Thank you. So as everybody knows, the Winslow School is currently a vacant building in town. We were notified in mid-April by our insurance carrier that due to the condition of the building, the existing policy was not going to be renewed. We asked them for options, obviously, to renew the policy. Included with this memo is the option that we received. The total annual cost was just over $30,000 to insure the building. Naturally, our concern is liability for the building if somebody was to break in. So we have confirmed with Maya that even if the board chooses not to purchase this relatively expensive policy, the town's general liability policy does cover if somebody breaks into the building and hurts themselves or if someone's doing work around it. The only thing that you wouldn't get is that insurance would not pay to remove the debris if it came down. So if you renewed the policy at that $31,000, all that policy would cover is the cost for you to remove debris if the building burned down or collapsed. It would not certainly replace the building. They see it as having no value. Don't tell Warren Allgrove I said that. But because that is a relatively big decision, we thought it was more appropriate for the board to decide. And so your options are essentially to go with the $30,000 policy or to stick with no policy for the time being, understanding that you are still covered for liability. The really only loss is that if something happened to that building, we'd have to come up with the funds, probably less than $30,000, I would imagine, to remove the debris.
Open up for discussion.
Any options outside of Maya?
None.
Currently, are we insured currently if it burnt down, it would be replaced?
No, even
No.
under your current policy, you would just get the debris removed.
Just that, so that building cannot be insured. It's not insurable.
For the purpose of getting a new building,
Placement.
right, yeah.
So I guess, Selectwoman Kellabokas.
I mean, if what we're looking at is we're going to insure it for the possibility, but it's going to be the same amount, it seems to kind of cross itself out, no? Yes? I would vote that we don't continue the insurance if the cost of us removing the debris is equal to or potentially less than that of us insuring it. And the only insurance we're talking about is the debris removal in the first place. I don't see why we would keep it.
Any other discussion? Selectwoman?
I find it somewhat disconcerting that they say that the building has no value when we just spent a considerable amount of money putting a new roof on it. And that, there are plans in the future to rehabilitate that building to a usable building. Now, again, who knows how fast that will be. I hear the argument of not insuring it for that kind of money, but it's still a town asset in a building, and I don't know that I'm comfortable just not insuring it either. I guess I would really like to know if have we reached out to the some of our local insurance carriers here in town to see if they have somebody that would be willing, they might be willing to help us secure that. I think Maya's, maybe a little removed from it, and somebody else might be able to advocate more passionately.
We can check for you. We can get another quote for your next meeting. It's as of like today, it's currently uninsured, but again, we are meeting again in about 3 weeks, so we can get you another quote before you make a
I
final
think,
decision.
could we take a vote not to accept this particular insurance policy, the MIA insurance policy tonight? And then we'll look at other options in the future. I think I'm seeing head nods.
Yeah, I don't see it doesn't make fiscal sense to insure it for what it covers. If we can find an alternate policy that will cover things more effectively, then I think we should certainly consider that. So I would be in favor of turning down the current and see if there's anything else and not have insurance for some period of time.
I think I hear agreement. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen choose not to renew the MIA insurance for this building.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Appointments.
Town Education Fund Committee and Trust Fund Committee. As board remember, a few weeks ago, it formally appointed Brenda Feeney to the role of Treasurer Collector. The Treasurer Collector serves on various boards and committees in Tyngsborough, including the Education Fund and the Trust Fund Committee. So in order for Ms. Feeney to be able to vote at these future meetings, the board will need to formalize her appointment tonight. These are annual appointments that the board makes, every year moving forward.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Brenda Feeney to the Town Education Fund and Trust Fund Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. Stormwater intern.
Great, thank you. The engineering department is looking for the board to appoint Nia Bergeron to the position of stormwater intern starting on May 2nd. This position is funded out of the existing stormwater budget and provides critical support to the engineering department as it relates to compliance with the MS4 permit. We advertised on our website in the MSA and through Handshake, which is a job intern posting site for area colleges. Back in February, and we received one applicant, but Nia is actually a Tyngsborough resident studying civil engineering at UMass Amherst. She will graduate in May of 24. For appointed tonight, she'd be compensated at the hourly rate of $16 per hour with a one-time $200 travel stipend, which is the same compensation provided to our last intern, and her letter of interest is attached.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Nia Bergeron to the position of stormwater intern at the hourly rate of $16 with a one-time travel stipend of $200 for a start date of May 2, 2022.
Second.
Motion to second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 500. IT support specialist.
The finance department assistant.
Oh, finance, okay.
Yep, so we're recommending the appointment of, it's Katia Barbetta, she goes by Kat, as the Finance Department Assistant in the Treasurer's Department. She has a strong background in customer service in both office and retail settings. She is local and excited to work in the town that she resides in. She has experience with data entry, billing, invoicing, and generating reports in various software systems. She's looking forward to the training that's going to be provided to her and being in the department long-term. Finance Department Assistant is part of the clerical union, and the hourly rate is $21.30 per hour, up to 40 hours per week. She'll be available to begin working on Monday, May 9th.
Any discussion from the board?
This is a replacement?
Yes, so Gloria Santana was the Finance Department Assistant, and she moved up to the Assistant Treasurer Collector position. We thought possibly the finance clerk may move into this position, but she chose not to. We solicited the outside resumes. Yeah.
It's covered in the budget that you had.
Oh, yes.
Just want to make sure people were clear.
Should I ask that question to start out with? Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Katia Barbetta to the position of Finance Department Assistant at the rate of $21.30 hourly with a start date of Monday, May 9th, 2022.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. IT support specialist.
All right. Tom will be very happy. We have found a replacement for the part-time support technician for the IT department, David Wilder. He's currently going to school at National Community College for cybersecurity and networking. He's planning on continuing his education while he works part-time for the town. He has several years of experience working in radio and media and was often asked to troubleshoot technical issues while on air, and that really sparked his interest more in the IT side. So he comes highly recommended from his former supervisors at WBZ and WMEX. The rate of pay is $24.50 per hour, and it's up to 19 hours per week. He is also available to start on May 9th.
Excellent. Very hard to find IT specialists, as especially part-time, as Mr. IT over here, Eric Eldridge, would know. Any discussions from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint David Wilder to the position of part-time IT support technician at the rate of $24.50 an hour with a start date of Monday, May 9th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That passes 500. Review request to extend town hall hours.
As this board will remember, we are currently in a trial period that started on around August 5th of last year. We started a trial period from November 15th. On November 16th, we extended the town hall hours through January 31st. Because of COVID and some other things, negotiations were delayed. On around January 31st, we extended through April 30th. And we were hoping to obviously have a finalized MOA by now, but we don't as of yet, and April 30th is just around the corner. So the union is requesting to extend the trial period through the end of June, which would get us through the rest of this fiscal year. So we wanted to bring that request to you at this time. Obviously,
We open it up to either Selectman Eldridge or Selectwoman Kellaboka, since they're in negotiations.
Yeah, I mean, so we are still negotiating, but we are at a bit of an impasse with one of the unions, and it's one of those ones that I think that we should talk about the challenge around just extending the timeline for this. I don't know when this is going to be taken care of. So I think that may be something that we talk about in executive session, or if there's other ways that we can look at that. But I think we're at an impasse with one of the unions, and we'd be looking for additional guidance from the rest of the board how they might want to proceed.
Selectwoman Kellabokas.
When did you say we started August of what? August, just this past August is when
Yeah.
we started the trial?
Yeah. I believe.
That's 8 months. That's a long trial. I would say, yeah, I mean, at 8 months, still going through a trial, I think we're almost done with the negotiations. The one that we're still going on with is pretty much, we have to come to some kind of decision in the near future. I would say that at some point, we have to put an end date to when the trial is this trial period is gonna end, and I think we should just get it out of the way, put the end date. I mean, it's April 30th is the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are meeting one more time next week as well, and hopes to wrap it up. No, this
This
week.
week.
Excuse me, yeah.
This
no,
week.
Wednesday.
This week, yes. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know that it's worth extending anything beyond that, but
I'm trialing for 8 months. Yeah.
I have a question.
Selectwoman,
Well, whereas we already passed it and have worked, I'm assuming worked it out with the other unions that are affected, I mean, to extend this trial, I mean, you know, to extend this trial means, you know, that there's still a period where it could be repealed, but we've already successfully negotiated it with everyone else. So, I mean, I guess we can't discuss too much of the issue in a public session, but I'd be interested to know what the holdout is with this particular group, considering there was a large number of them that were here and advocated for it when we passed it.
well, I mean,
We did it.
my gut feel is that it's been going on a long time, since August. I remember the last time this got brought up, there was a recommendation for 1 or 2 months, and, I was kind of the opinion, let's do it 2 months, but you've got 2 more months to get this done. And now it's still not done, and it sounds like we're at a further impasse, so I don't see why we extend this anymore. Continue to negotiate, but, I don't see why we extend it.
All right, we did do it.
yeah, I say we take no action, because we
Is that what
passed it contingent upon successful negotiation with the unions, and we're shy one.
Do we have to take no action, or do we have to motion to something?
You don't have to take any motion. You can take no action right now, and we can discuss it a bit more in executive session. We amended the agenda and put it on their executive session in case we needed to discuss it a bit more. So, I mean, if there's no support to extend it right away, right now, you don't have to vote no necessarily, and just take no action, and we'll have a discussion in executive session and see if that changes anything.
Do we want to review this executive session? We'll take no action on extending the hours. Do we need an executive session to go into any further detail?
Yeah, we're going to discuss it in that executive session anyways, right?
Well, we have a meeting this Wednesday. I mean, we wouldn't have to go into executive session to discuss it. We have at least one more meeting this week to try and resolve it, so it may get worked out this week. The executive session is there as an option if you want. I'm not trying to force you into executive session.
But that's what's on the agenda though, right?
Yeah.
We did that just in case, just in case. Okay, no action? No action. Town administrators report.
I'll be very brief. Say a couple things. The town's regularly updating the website and social media regarding the upcoming town meeting and pre-town meeting information sessions, and we're also utilizing our electronic message boards, our reverse 911, and direct mail to every household. The direct mail is specific to the middle school project. Dr. Flanagan and I will be on 98 WCAP tomorrow morning with Teddy Panos at 8:15 to discuss the middle school project. And the town's cable council met with Verizon for the first time. They finally agreed to meet with him today, so we should have an update for the board at your next meeting on how that's going, but it's nice that they finally reached out. They're backlogged, our understanding is, with all their clients who are up this year. whatever reason. And then just before I turn it over, I did just want to take a moment myself under the TA report to thank Selectman Rowe for his really lifetime of service to the town. We've known each other for a long time, and there's 12,000 people in town, and to put more than 12 years of service, just 12 years to the board, but really the lifetime of service to the board, it takes a lot of work and effort and dedication to volunteer so much time to the town. And we've known each other going back to those NIMCOG days, 11 years, and I've never met many people in my life that dedicate so much time to their town. And I just really want to thank you for your service. Even though I'm not a resident, it's recognized, and people should, if more people gave that amount of time that you have, it would make our lives a lot easier, because volunteers really keep the wheels moving around here as much as the employees do. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Colin?
Yes, sir. Just quickly, we have 4 procurement projects right now. The Kendall Road parking lot project, as Matt mentioned, is due this Wednesday. General plumbing and electrical services, responses are due on May 18th, and the request for proposals on the Tyngsborough Elementary School playground project is due on May 19th. The Veterans Memorial Project is moving along nicely. Most of the site work is complete as of today, and the next big step will be rigging up and relocating the monuments from in front of the Lambert's property. We met with Hudson Monuments on site, and they are in the process of creating a new plaque, which will recognize the names that Chris has collected over the last month from people that weren't originally recognized on the monuments. The plaque will likely not be installed in time for Memorial Day, but certainly the monuments will have been fully moved and the site work will be complete. So we're looking at a real ribbon cutting sometimes in the fall, depending on when the plaque is available and when Rep. Gary is available as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Matt or Colin? Okay, Selectmen's report. Selectman Rowe.
Mind if I go last?
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Selectman Winstrom.
I just encourage people to get out and find the information about the school and the important vote, both at town meeting and at the ballot. It's very important. I think a lot of people think there's ways it can be done cheaper, better, differently, comparing it to the elementary school building project and how that went down. But we're under a completely different set of rules and regulations than we were 25 years ago. So, I encourage people, the information is out there. It's on the town site, it's on the school site, it's on numerous social medias. It's not hard to find. Google Tyngsborough Middle School Building Project, and you'll get the website. So I encourage people, both the vote at town meeting and the vote at the ballot are equally as important. So I hope people will come out. Thank you.
Selectman Eldridge.
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, it's a large number, and so we have a town meeting style government, so we need to have people show up and participate. There is a tremendous amount of information, and it'll be incumbent upon us between Thursday night's meeting and the town meeting itself to fill in any gaps that there may be there. So if people still have questions, ask them. We're there on Thursday night. We'll answer as many questions as we need to make people feel comfortable. I do think it's real important for people to understand it is very different than when we did the high school and we did the elementary school. We don't get multiple cracks at this. And there's been a lot of people who've done a lot of work on it, and I've been very impressed with the amount of diligence that has been undertaken in looking at all the options, and also different than perhaps some of the other schools is that fiscal responsibility was first and foremost. It wasn't trying to put the best pieces of equipment in there. It's what we need. And for those people that look at the pretty renderings and say, oh, they got really expensive stuff and all that, those are renderings of what type of furniture could be in there. That doesn't mean that's the furniture we're getting. So I think the committee and all the folks involved, and Dr. Flanagan has been looking at it and it's very fiscally responsible, and the reality is, it's what we need today. And the reality is, 6, 8, 10 years from now, it's not going to be any cheaper. It's going to be a lot more expensive. I know inflation is hitting us all, but inflation's not going to go down. We're not going to have negative inflation over the next several years. So I understand that it is not a trivial amount of money, and that's why we, as a board and working with the other boards, have said we're going to commit to coming up with $1 million of our operating budget to help keep those costs low. But while we're doing it, we're still adding police services, fire services, we're working on the roads, we're dealing with keeping the school funded as well, all of those things. So it is a good blend of balance, but we do need to have, that school in. It's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectwoman Kellabokas.
I have nothing new to add. I think you've heard it twice already. The takeaway really is do your research, talk to people, go out, figure out what's happening, and then come and vote.
Thank you. And the pre-town meeting, again, I just want to announce it. It's this Thursday, 6:30 at the Old Town Hall. It's a pre-town meeting. We will go through all of the articles, and we'll have a big presentation on the school. And as was mentioned a couple of times here, we only get one shot at this. It's not like the elementary school where we had multiple opportunities. If this does not go through, we go back to the back of the line. It'll probably take us 9 years to get to this point again, to get funding from the state. So very important that everybody goes out and gets all the information that they possibly can and make an educated vote on this. Thank you. Selectman Rowe,
Yes, thank you. And again, that is the most important thing to, please go to town meeting, please participate in a very important vote that really impacts our town moving forward, impacts your property values, but most importantly, it provides a better education to the students of Tyngsborough. So I can say that I put thousands and thousands of hours into the town, so I think, to go to a town meeting and dedicate maybe 3 or 4 hours of your time is not a lot to ask, and it is important to cast your vote, and hopefully the votes are there to support the school, because I think it's something that every town needs to do. Tyngsborough has certainly done its share over the years in providing good schools, and we should continue to do so. Again, I want to thank the voters of Tyngsborough for allowing me to represent you these last, I don't know how many years. I heard all kinds of different numbers, but I do thank you for allowing me to represent you. I did the very, very best I could, and again, I hold my head high in what we've accomplished as a town, within all our boards and all our town employees. I apologize if I don't mention anybody's name specifically. There's just hundreds of people that I've worked with, and not to slight everybody, but to appreciate all. It's been a nice team effort, and best wishes to everybody going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Executive session.
We talked about that. We said I thought we didn't need the executive session tonight.
Nope,
Ask
work
if
it
there's
out.
any other questions.
Work it out. Good. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that passes 5-0-0. Thank you very much, everybody.